Hi guys. Thanks for having me here today. Thanks for feeding me your pizza. It was a late night last night. I didn't have breakfast this morning, so I was voraciously slamming pizza out there. I'm trying to get this thing on. So they invited me here today it felt really weird standing up above everyone. So if I can just sit down here, that's way better. So I'm supposed to talk about how my science interests mixed with my business interests, and something happened. And so I want to show you this. This was Appeal Science. This was Appeal Technology. You're probably looking at this thing going, that is the most disgusting, or so what's there's a word, kitschy. This is how this was described back to me, but this is when we started this business, this is what the company was essentially. And so I'm going to hopefully not just tell you how I got into the business side of things from being a scientist, but actually show you in pictures and tell you a story about how this happened. So first of all, I want to tell you what it is that we do. Well, we take the parts of the plant that you're not eating, so like stems, leaves, grape skins, orange peels, etc. We blend those up, and then from that blend, we extract a subset of molecules that we then turn into a water-based formulation that we then reapply to the parts of the produce that you're eating in order to extend its shelf life. So it's a really long, complicated way of explaining that we make invisible, tasteless coatings that make produce last 2 to 5 times as long. And the theme of this for me, and in starting the business, was it really didn't matter that I hadn't started a business before. You kind of learn as you go. But it's the overarching theme of what I'm going to tell you today is that if you are interested in getting into the business side and starting a business, combining technology into a new market, it's really not important where you start. It's just important that you get started. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever read was, if you are worried about a problem that you have today with the business, if you just make a decision, you'll wake up 2 months down the road and think, why the hell was I worried about that decision? I've got a whole new set of problems that I've got to deal with now. So just for a sense of timeline, I want to show, so this was the article that kind of made me start thinking about this problem. I was reading an article in The Economist back in 2011. They do an audio edition, which is awesome because you can listen to it and ride your bike and get a whole download of what's going on in the world. So I was listening to this article back in 2011. And we incorporated the business in June of 2012, so just for a little sense of time frame. And what happened was I was driving between Santa Barbara and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and I'm looking out the window, and I just read this article on world hunger, and I thought to myself, probably naively, and definitely naively, why do we have world hunger if we've got these magical seeds that we're able to put into the ground, supply with water, supply with sunlight, and they generate food? What's the problem? Because I just read this article about being able to feed people. So I got up, and thank God for Google, you're able to say, what is the problem with feeding people? And the number one response that comes out is 50% of what we're growing is ending up in a landfill. 50%. So the problem isn't not being able to grow enough food. In fact, farming efficiency has increased dramatically. The problem is not being able to preserve the food that we've grown. And so, when you look at this, 50% in the US and then 70 to 90% in the developing world. And these are numbers that are out there. This wasn't something that I discovered, had to do the research on. All this information was out there, and I couldn't help but think, well, why isn't anything being done about this? There must be a way to work on this problem. So now I'm captivated by this idea. I'm thinking, okay, there must be a way to take the 50% of stuff we're throwing out and make that a little better. And so, having gone to I did my undergrad in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's steel town. As material scientists, what did we study? We studied stainless steel. And the way stainless steel works is by reacting with oxygen molecules in the atmosphere to form this thin scaling layer that surrounds the iron. That's stainless steel. So I thought to myself, well, there must be a way that we can prevent produce from split, using the same idea. Not using stainless steel, but using the same kind of idea. So now you've got this idea, where do you start from that? I mean, and you have to do something to get associated with it. So for me, it was giving the company a name. And it sounds really stupid, but like I said, it doesn't matter where you start, you just have to start somewhere. And that's where this was for me. So, you know, wrote up a word web of things. I read an article in the New Yorker about a company called Lexicon. They do naming of companies. They named the Swiffer, they named the Nissan Leaf, they named the Pentium computer, and they had a whole thing about how this company goes through this exercise. Read this thing, thought it'd be fun, let's name this company, let's give it a name. Made a word web, made a list of, you know, all the things that kind of came out of that as they suggested. I mean, there's some funny ones like Degra Cadabra, Agrifresh, I don't even know. But then, you know, some of them actually got kind of close to what ended up picking. So, and you can see it written here, like Peel Plastics. But anyways, it's not pretty. It's not like you go out to some firm and they'll help you and do all this stuff. You don't have any money. So you end up writing all the names on your window, and then you get your roommates to write in their favorite versions underneath, which I'm happy I don't have a photo of those. So now you've got a name for the company, right? And so it's weird to think about this, right? You're a scientist and you're starting a business, and you're like, well, who cares about giving this thing a name? Well, you'll see why this is important. So now you have to make a mark for it, right? If you see someone's business card, what do you see? You see the name of the company, you see a logo, you see their name, you see their title. Well, you need a logo for the company. So you go through iterations, and that's where you saw that, you know, the kitschy thing that I showed you at the very beginning. You're probably wondering what the hell that was. Now you've got a name and you've got a logo. Well, that doesn't sound like much, and maybe it wouldn't have been much, but guess what you can do? Now you can buy a web page, right? And guess how much these things cost? $13, something like that. So now you've got a name, a logo, a web page, a name and a logo, and a web page. Now you've got something that allows you to not only be yourself, but to present yourself to the world and have people be able to find you and what you do, right? And this is a way for you to just basically allow people to understand your business. Because if it's just you telling someone what you're doing, they're going to agree with you. They're going to go, oh yeah, I know, I totally understand that. That makes a lot of sense. And they're going to walk away and they're not going to understand it. And they're going to be embarrassed to tell someone else about it because they don't understand it. If you're able to put up a web page that explains in detail what it is that you're doing, now you're able to educate people, and they're able to become educated about your business, and they're able to be advocates for what you're doing as well. What else are you able to do? You're able to make business cards, right? This seems kind of silly, but a business card is really powerful because when you make your business cards, now it's yourself, your name, your logo, and your title. And so guess what? Guess when you call a company and you're the CEO of your company, and no one knows it's just one person. When you're the CEO of your company, guess who you get to talk to at the company you call? The CEO. How is this a thing? This is like the best workaround of all time. So you get to, so you're just slowly moving the mark. It doesn't seem like you're doing anything, but you're slowly moving the needle. All right, so now you got a sanity check. Now you're like, I've got business cards, I've got a web page. I think we know what we're doing. Can we do this? And so you do the $10 experiment, right? You don't go out and say, oh, I need $1 million to do this. You go, all right, can I figure out an experiment that I can run for like $10, $100 to extract molecules out of produce, put them on the surface of something, and see if it lasts longer? Well, ran the experiment on the kitchen table. It's the first one I ran. I'm like, I should take photos of this as a good scientist and document what's going on. This is the first extraction of molecules I ever did from a bunch of strawberries. Super expensive extraction. We don't use strawberries anymore. Extract material, apply it to a surface, and whoa, these apples don't go brown as quickly. All right, sanity check complete. Doesn't matter about the details, what the cost is going to be. It is feasible to take this idea where we're extracting stuff from produce, turning it into a formulation, and applying it to something, and making it last longer. So what do you do with that? Again, you make another kitschy demonstration. Now that you have an understanding of how this works, the whole time you're like, well, how do I make this work? How do I make this work better? And you try to explain it in as simple as a way as you possibly can. And so you're able to make infographics through your illegal gotten copy of Photoshop. And then you put it online so other people are able to understand what it is you're doing, because it doesn't matter how much you care about what you're doing, it matters how many other people you're able to get around you. So how does it work? I just want to show you. So this is a cross-section of a piece of produce with our product applied to it. This is a regular piece of produce. Basically, we're able to create these coatings which prevent the natural desiccation of the fruit. So normally fruit is losing water and it's getting oxidized by oxygen coming in. So we just take these extracts, turn them into a nice blend, which we're able to reapply to the surfaces, and then that acts to mitigate water loss and oxidation. So we're able to make produce last, some kinds of produce last twice as long, some kinds of produce last 5 times as long. We got up to 14 times as long, different kinds of stuff. Anyways, this is how it works. This is the only science part. All right, so now you've convinced yourself, right? You're in, you've done a sanity check, you're the CEO of your one-man company, you got your webpage. Now you have to convince other people, and this is where doing all that back-end stuff is really important, because now you've got a web page that you're able to point people to when you leave them, so they're able to check in on what you're doing. They're able to read little press releases that maybe you're doing. And the way that you convince other people is to do these slide decks. I know that they probably harp on this in your classes, but you make these slide decks, and if you're a scientist, it seems really stupid because, like, well, I'm used to doing these huge assignments where you solve some sort of problem. Well, this is a slide deck that says, here's the company, here's the opportunity, here's the team, here's how much money we're raising. And that is literally what you need to raise money. It's astonishing, but that is what you need, and you'll learn more about that if you take some business classes. Anyways, I took this photo because I was on the train, and I was like, this is the coolest time I've ever been working at a computer like this. I thought it would be fun. So then we did the new venture competition at UC Santa Barbara. This was an awesome experience because it forces you into timelines and building balance sheets and income statements and all that fun stuff that you'll learn when you need to do it and then probably not use it anymore. So we ended up winning that competition, and that was going from the $10, $15 experiment I was doing in my apartment to doing the $10,000 experiment, taking this money and now going from using a measuring spoon to going and being able to use a balance, like a scale. Being able to buy a refrigerator to run the tests in, do all that kind of stuff. So you go from the $10 or the $100 experiment now to the $10,000 experiment. What's that allow you to do, right? It allows you to buy supplies. This is in my living room, and this is what I was able to afford with the $5,000 that we got, was enough stuff to do the extractions and actually weigh them out and be quantifiable about this stuff. Start to do the science behind the original experiments. Yeah, so it's not pretty, right? Because you don't have money, and you don't have a lot of money to pay someone $600 to ship your stuff. So I was up at a wedding, and I'm showing this just because this is what it really looks like, right? I'm up at a wedding in Oregon, and there's a refrigerator that's for sale, and it's down the road, and they only have one rental car left at the rental car place because I'm a horrible planner, and I wanted to get this refrigerator. Well, it doesn't fit in the trunk. There's really no trunk. And so I tied this thing on with a dog leash, drove it to the thing, boxed it up myself, and sent it back, saved like $700. So anyways, just showing this because this is like what it actually looks like. And then this is how much weirder it gets, right? Like one day I woke up on Sunday morning and I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is my bedroom. Like reading papers about produce and how to make these barriers have the right properties. This is like a little creepy, and it gets creepier because you don't have money to buy lab space or to buy a fume hood somewhere to work in. So here's this like little desk by my bedstand, and if you wrap it around, this is sitting like directly to the right of my bed, which is really creepy. Like when people see this, but you have to make do. You have to just, if you care about it, and like by creating the website and creating creating your business cards, you've forced accountability back on yourself. You've made it so that someone can say, hey, how's the business going? Because when you don't have that, it's easy to retreat and go, oh, it was just an idea I hadn't done anything. So you force this accountability back on yourself. And now you force yourself into a position where you have to decide, am I going to give up on this, or am I going to make this successful? Because you don't have all the kinks worked out. I mean, that's what the business is for, right? If all the kinks were worked out, it would already be a thing that's out there happening. So this, of course, makes you incredibly poor, right? This is not as bad as it got. I'm still in debt from from buying all the stuff that I needed. But It's like every dollar that comes in from your graduate student stipend, which I was on, was going out the door to buy more equipment or to travel somewhere or to meet someone to make the progress that needed to happen. So the whole time you're getting poor, right, you're looking for other opportunities, you're looking for financing, and the best way for us forward came from financing that was available from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They had a proposal call out that said, hey, we're looking for ways to increase efficiency of food from farm to market in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, that's perfect for us. That's exactly what we're trying to do. But the only reason I knew about that opportunity was because I'd met someone through the New Venture competition who was on that mailing list, who had spoken with me, who said, oh, let me forward you this email. I think this might apply. So it's that growing the network and making sure that other people know what you're doing so that you can grow your net of information that comes in. So then, this is the first check that came in from the Gates Foundation. It was like, oh yes, jackpot. So now it's Christmas time. You're like, oh man, I got $100,000. Sweet, I can do all this stuff that I wanted to do, but I didn't have enough money to do it. Now I can start doing that stuff. So now you start doing the $100,000 experiment, right? So now you did the $10 experiment, then you did the $10,000 experiment, now you're doing the $100,000 experiment. And each time you're de-risking it a little bit, you're moving the needle a little bit farther. So my problem was I was one person and I needed to test a bunch of different deposition conditions to optimize these coding formulas to make produce last longer while trying to finish my PhD, which I stopped caring about completely. So built this automated deposition system with a lot of this money so that I was able to use this little robot to do the optimization of the film deposition stuff. So you just, and it'll be different for every business, but you just use the resources that you have to scale yourself in some way. Anyways, ended up making this nice machine which optimized the stuff, automatically optimized the formulations for us. So I want to show this because this is the first time we ever did application of extracts to strawberries. And it's not pretty, right? You would not buy this in the grocery store. But I want to show this because it's not going to work the first time. And if you get discouraged and go, oh man, like this didn't work the first time, nah, this is out, I screwed up, I missed out, or I messed up, it's just not going to work. You just have to go, oh, okay, I tried it, I'm going to make it better the next time. Because now when you see this crappy one, now the next one's a little better, and you go, wow, that one looks way better, and then the next one's way better, and way better, and way better. Okay, so look, we're missing a piece here, right? Because got this idea, there's this big problem, now I've developed a technological solution, but where's the market research part fit into this? Who the hell is going to buy this stuff? So you go out in the field, literally go out in the field, stop on the side of the freeway, and have your friend take a photo of you so you can have pictures like this. Does anyone know what these are? Or can you take a guess? These are tomatoes. You have no idea until you go to the processing facility. Well, it turns out they pick tomatoes in the field when they're green, and then they take them into the processing facility, and they box them up, and then they ship them. They hit them with a molecule called 1-methylcyclopropene, which prevents the autocatalytic ripening of the fruit. Then they ship it to a distribution center, and they wait till there's a call to get some tomatoes, and then they hit it with ethylene gas, which causes the autocatalytic ripening, which turns them red and softens them. That's why they don't taste like anything, because they're disconnected from the vine when they're ripened. Anyways, so now I'm like, well, we're doing this thing for strawberries, but think about all the stuff we could do for these tomatoes. So you start learning about more potential opportunities. And this is just calling people and saying, hey, can I come check out your tomato processing facility? So I want to show a couple of these. So, this is market research. This is as simple as it gets. You're going out in the field and you're saying, hey guys, can I watch you pick this lettuce? And they're moving behind this truck, and they're happy to show you. Look at how fast I can do this. And they're cutting the lettuce out of the ground, they're putting it on a conveyor belt, it's going around the conveyor belt, and now there's a guy at the other end who's spraying the end of that lettuce with some chlorine so that the bacteria doesn't get in. They go, aha, this is a way that we could potentially apply our product to lettuce. There's a guy already spraying here. This is a tomato processing facility. Guess what % of these tomatoes make it out the other end of the processing facility? 50%. So they're throwing away just 50% of the tomatoes that come in the door here. They're eating up as cattle feed. You start realizing the scale of the problem here. So this brings me back to strawberries. Well, what's the problem with strawberries? this guy is bent over at the waist all day long, finding strawberries. He's finding the individual ripened berries because the strawberries don't ripen once they're picked. You have to pick them at ripeness. So now he's going through the field, finding the ripened strawberries, putting them in a clamshell, closing that clamshell, and then they're never touched again until they get to you as the consumer. So where the hell are we going to apply our product? This is a problem. This is like a major problem for us. So you know, and then there's other extremes, right? So this guy's picking strawberries. I'm not going to show you the video. But then there's the other extremes of produce where these guys are going through an automated sorting facility, getting hit with laser beams, measuring the color, exactly weighing the mass, dropping them down a chute so that the boxes weigh exactly 10.00 pounds. I mean, so now you start learning about, okay, we thought the opportunity was here, but maybe there's another opportunity somewhere else that's a little easier to go after. So learn a little bit about the market, and this is all still out of the bedroom. But now you realize, okay, here's some opportunities, here's what we think they are, here's the technology that we have, let's find that market product fit. So we moved into a bigger shell, and this was moving into a garage, you know, in Santa Barbara still, but I wasn't able to fit it all in the bedroom anymore. We needed more space to do experiments. You know, literally bought the wood to make the workbench and do the stuff. And then, as Mike said, you know, business. You know, if you're a business person, you probably need to find a scientist for your business. If you're a scientist, you probably need to find a business person for your business. It speaks to the bigger thing that one person does not scale. Even if you're the best scientist in the world, you're maybe 50% better than the average scientist. So it does not help you to try to do everything yourself. You need to find someone else to help you. And that first person to make the jump, I call that finding a hero. And for me, the hero was this girl named Jenny Du, who was working at UC Santa Barbara doing her postdoc. And I said, hey Jenny, this is what I'm doing. Do you want to come work with me? And she said, yeah, I'm in. And I said, you know, we're working out of the garage. And she said, yeah, I'll be there. There's a place to put my bike right here. And she came on. Like, to me, that's a hero. So we set up shop in the garage. We did all the experiments that we needed, and there was another piece, right? So now we've said, oh, here's how big the market is, here's the problems, here's the way that we can solve them, here's where we're able to implement the technology. Well, that wasn't the easiest thing to do. You want to find the easiest thing to do, and for us, it was to identify the low-hanging fruit, no pun intended, and that was fresh cut flowers, right? There's no concerns with fresh cut flowers, with any sort of food safety or production. It makes our problem way easier, because instead of having to do extractions, we can buy stuff and combine it to make this work. And so we started working with fresh cut flowers. This is what it looks like, right? You go down there, you say, can I get some flower stems to work with to see if we can make this happen? And they give you a bucket, you throw it in your car, and you drive it home and you work with them, right? It's not a fancy process. You do the first experiment, right? Just like the strawberry thing. You know, okay, we're gonna dip this one, we're not gonna dip this one, we're gonna set them on the bench and come back in the morning, and you put your hands up in the air and go, oh yeah, this is working for flowers. So now you gotta do even more market research, right? And for me, a part of the market research was, people know that 50% of produce in the US is spoiling. No one seems to be doing anything about it, we just seem to be refrigerating. Well, 70 to 90% of that spoilage is occurring in the developing world. What's going on here? Is there an opportunity for our technology to help people in the developing world? So visited Kenya. This is the Kenyan Agricultural Research Institute. This is produce for sale at the market, right? This looks a lot different than the grocery stores that we have in the US. Do you think that maybe, can you see where maybe this additional problem of spoilage comes in? All right, can you tell me where, or does anyone see where the produce is in this picture? The guy's sleeping on it. The guy's sleeping on it because he knows that 70 to 90% of what he's growing is going to get tossed out. So he's just using this as a chair until a guy comes by the roadside and says, yeah, I'll give you $5 for that bushel of stuff that you've got there, and he accepts that price because otherwise the whole 100% of it's going to go bad. This is the state of the art for transportation of leafy greens, right? It's a burlap bag. This is another market. So Whereas in the US, we have access to this cold chain, we have access to refrigeration that's able to keep stuff longer. This is just not an option, right? The infrastructure is not installed. The electrical grids, there's hardly roads, let alone the electrical infrastructure installed, let alone refrigeration necessary to get these spoilage rates down below at even close to the 50% level that we have. So realize there's a huge opportunity here for our product to help, right? This is a roadside stand. Do you see refrigeration here? Right, nothing. Again, you know, these are every mile, right? Smallholder farmers grow their crop somewhere on less than a football field of land. They produce it and they carry it out to the roadside where they wait for a salesperson to come by with a truck, and they'll say, "Hey, I'll give you $1 for that bucket of potatoes." And you either say, "Yes, I'll sell that to you," or those things are going to spoil overnight and you're not going to have anything to sell tomorrow. So they have no market power. They have no pricing power in this negotiation, so they're price takers, and so they're stuck in poverty, essentially just being able to barely maybe feed themselves for the most part. So you realize, yeah, there's a huge opportunity in the US to help with products that allow you to get better produce to market, but there's an even larger opportunity to help people get food on their table to eat, or to be able to feed their families, or to send their kids to school by being able to sell the extra crop. Right? Do you think maybe there's a problem with bacterial contamination in some of these markets? Right? There's a huge opportunity here for improvement. And you don't need to do much either. It doesn't take much. In the US, you might have to develop the fanciest computer chip in the world, but there are places in the world where even the simplest improvement will make a dramatic difference, right? If you're an economist, you look at this like the marginal efficiency of your dollar usage. Again, you know, this is state of the art. So the worst conditions. And then but you're not just doing the work, right? You got to do the fun stuff too. I went on a safari, I saw the giraffes. The tour guide was like, "What do you want to see?" And I was like, "Show me the giraffes." And he said, "Why do you want to see the giraffes? There's lions and stuff." And I said, "I don't know, I just really want to see the giraffes." So he took me to see the giraffes, which was awesome. These things were running. He called them Miss Kenya, because these are reticulated giraffes. You're going to be really well educated if you know that there's a difference between a reticulated giraffe and a non-reticulated giraffe. Anyways, saw the equator, cool stuff, did the water experiment. Oh, now you have to graduate from school, right? So you're trying to care about what you're doing in school. Well, your mom is saying, "Sweetie, you really should finish the thing that you started a long time ago. Your mom, I don't care about this. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I learned stuff I want to learn." And then, you know, you listen to your mom in the end, and you graduate from school. When you graduate at UCSB, you, my past advisor, he would buy champagne and we drink on the roof anyways. Graduated. It was not fun. I actually graduated 3 days after I got back from Kenya, and the last day I was there, I ate this ketchup that was on a table like an idiot, and I realized it was bubbling, and I definitely got food poisoning from that. So I gave my thesis defense. Oh, I had the worst headache, and I just completely blacked out. And after the talk, it was like the scene from I can't remember the movie. It's like I blacked out what happened because I'd given the talk so many times, and like anyways, I ended up passing. So the lower hanging fruit, and this is actually pun intended, is this crop called cassava. So I learned about this when I was in Kenya, and that this is a root crop. It's like a potato, but it feeds 70 million people more than 500 calories a day. That's crazy that I had never even heard of this thing. But they pull it out of the ground and it lasts 24 to 48 hours. So I'm a smallholder farmer. I'm growing cassava to feed my family because it grows in really bad conditions. There's like 8 roots on this thing. We eat 4 of them, right? We can't eat all 8 of these things. Then I go out to the roadside and I try to sell the leftover cassava that I've got. Guy comes by on the roadside and says, "Yeah, I'll give you a nickel for that," because he knows if you don't sell it to him for a nickel, it's going to be worth 0 nickels tomorrow because it's going to go bad. So we realized, aha, we can use our product to help these people get 7 to 9 days out of their cassava instead of 2 days, giving them a little bit more market power. So this was like a really big aha moment for us. This is like the equivalent of finding the right fruit to work with in the US. Anyways, do some experiments. Hey, does this technology work? How do you test if the technology works? We don't have to do the full optimization of the coding for cassava. Just use saran wrap, right, to test if this idea is going to work here. Anyways, do the experiments. It works really nicely. All right, so now you've got, before you did this, you knew nothing about this whole market or business or anything like that. Now slowly you've figured out the little pieces of the market and you put them together, you might be one of the most knowledgeable people in the world now about this particular problem that you're trying to solve. But how do you use that? I call it just, you have to go be pretty. You have to fit the mold of what someone thinks that a business person looks like. I'm not a very formal person. I hate it when I have to get dressed up, but it's just one of those things that you have to do. And I call it be pretty. So you go meet investors. You talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And one of those people one day will look at you in the face and go, yeah, I want to write you a check. So got all dressed up. You know, it's funny, I'm working in the garage with Jenny. I'm in my gym shorts and my bro tank. And I go get dressed up and put on my, my button-up shirt, tuck in my pants, put on my shoes, drive to this meeting, have lunch with this guy. At the end of the meeting, he says, yeah, I want to write you a check. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. He said, what's your minimum investment? $50,000. Okay. Like, all right, well, I'll send you the paperwork. He says, I'm just gonna write you the check. You can just give me the paperwork when you're ready. Like, okay, you're gonna write me a $50,000 check out of your personal bank account without even a receipt. We need more of you people around, because I had to talk to hundreds of people to find you. So he wrote us the first check. I get out in his driveway and I'm like, how long do I wait before I take this photo? Like, I have to take this photo right now. This is amazing. I should probably cover up his bank account numbers. Don't write those down. But that was the first private investment that we took in the company, and it took hundreds of conversations with people and being able to answer the questions about well, what is the crop you're going to work with? How much spoilage is there? Where is the real opportunity? What do you need to do this? Anyways. So now you've got fuel in the tank. Then once you get the first one, they all just pour in the door, right? It's just like dominoes fall over, because now everyone's got the fear of missing out. It's like, oh no, they're raising their money and the round's gonna fill up. Now we have to get our check in before we have the opportunity to miss out. So anyways, that's how it works. Get the first one. I read something in the book, right? It's like, raising money is like herding cats. Doesn't matter which cat you actually capture. It helps if it's like a big pretty one, but you really just gotta get one cat in the bag and they all kind of follow. This is very true. So then you sign a bunch of paper, right? This is like the series seed documents that we have to sign, and you sell a fraction of your company for money. But that is awesome because then your bank account gets awesome. This is not my personal bank account. This is the company's bank account. Now, you've gone from doing the $10 experiment to the $100 experiment to the $10,000 experiment to the $100,000 experiment. Now you're on to the $1 million experiment. Now you build a lab, right? So now you're like out of the garage, you've got more stuff to do, other experiments to run. Build a lab, you're still working cheap, so you buy fume hoods and pieces and you piece them together and let them sit there in inventory. You set up the fume hood, you put in chemical resistant floors, you find a place to go live, and you knock down walls, and you put in chemical resistant flooring, you build your fume hoods. This is our lab when it was clean, now it's horrendously dirty. And so everything's going on here. So we're working on our floral experiments, we're making our materials, doing extractions all in the same place, Then you set up systems to help you, right? So just like we built the early system to help with optimizing the deposition, now we built these little robots to move around and take videos of flowers every 15 minutes so that we have these time-lapse videos of how our products were working. This should be really quick, but it's ugly, but you just write your own software to help you show, hey, I can explain to you that the flowers that we treat with our product work better, but it's way better if I'm able to show you a video of how it works, because now you get it without me having to say, oh, 3 of them went down on day 2 and 4 of them went down on day whatever. You're just able to show the video. Now, the really important part, and like cliche, but finding A players, I cannot stress this enough, finding the best possible people is the most important thing that you will possibly do in your business. And I mean the people who just are awesome. You can depend on them. You require no oversight whatsoever. They're the hardest people to convince, but once you convince them, they will do amazing things for your business. And then you chain them to the fume hood and you don't leave them leave, right? You just feed them at the office, you give them snacks, and you just let them work. So this is how we started. You buy a used conference table, you put chairs around it, you buy a little couch because you got $1 million in the bank, or you can spend $400 on a couch so people can sit on it. You do fun stuff. But it's cool, then you sneak around the lab, you take photos because you're so happy of like your little lab space, and people catch you taking photos of them. They think it's creepy, but then they end up in presentations and they're not so mad. And then it's cool, you're all on a team again now. Now you've gone from like this lonely endeavor of, hey, maybe we can make this work, to now you've got a team of people where something's working and everyone's happy. Because it's not like grad school where your research works and you're able to write a research paper and you get a first author paper. Now it's like, well, if my experiment works, then that's your experiment too. We're all sharing in this, and it's really awesome. So the next step after that is to obviously save the world. So we've gone a lot since then. This probably takes us up to January, right after we raised the money of last year. So it's been a little over a year since then. I'm not going to tell that part of the story because I'd say that's a harder part, but there's books about that part. There's really not too many books about this part, and this is really like how I got my like quote unquote business education. Anyways, I want to share that part of the story with you. And if you see this is us now after working with a really intelligent designer. Anyways, that's all I want to say about how I got from the science nerd part to the business part, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about that. No questions? Oh yeah, sorry.
Several questions. Even your name, did you check it out to make sure that there was another company?
Yes. That is one of the... Yeah, that's one of the most, that's like, the funny thing is that's the important naming requirement now, is can you get the domain name? And so that's why we were Appeal Technology rather than just Appeal, was appealtechnology.com was available. Appeal.com was bought by some damn squatter who's selling it for $70K. Those are the worst people. Yeah, so yeah, check that stuff out. And there are other companies, so you can have a company with the same name as long as it's not in the same product category. So there's like an Appeal underwear company out there. Don't look this up. It's like offensive underwear. There's a skincare company called Appeal as well. It's just different categories.
Second, patents. Do you have any patents pending, or do you from the beginning, or just, oh my goodness, you don't have a patent and you ran out to the patent office?
I think patents are the best way for you to waste a lot of money really early on. Patents are really important for investors, because investors don't typically have the scientific expertise to understand the technology, so they just want to count your patents. And so for some investors that will be important, counting up how many patents it is that you have. But as you develop IP, you want to patent it. There's this weird interplay because you don't want to wait too long to patent something because someone else might patent it, but you don't want to patent it too early because you're constantly switching directions to find out what works so much. So we're constantly developing intellectual property, but we develop it in key areas. So we develop patents around our extraction process, patents around our formulation process, patents around the and then you learn new things. So we go, oh, we're extracting this stuff from fresh produce. So we're just going to patent that stuff. And then some smart investor comes along and says, well, what if BASF just figures out a molecule you guys are using and makes it synthetically after you guys have proven that it's safe? I'm like, oh crap. We better hire the scientists to do the synthetic version so we can patent those routes as well. And so you learn about the additional things that you have to do when it comes to building a defensible business.
How about the FDA?
So that was a huge part of getting this business started was, man, I don't want to go out and raise money to develop a new drug. So what's out there? And we realized that there's two categories. There's new molecules that are developed for antifungal resistance or something like that, and those have to go through tremendous scrutiny, being tested for persistence in the environment, for toxicology, all of this stuff. But there's also a category which is generally recognized as safe, which means if the molecules are found in abundance in produce that people have been eating since 1960 or whatever date they specified, you can use those molecules without having to get them reapproved because they're not a synthetic molecule. They're found ubiquitously in nature, and they've been very widely consumed. So rather than go through all those billions of molecules, the FDA or the USDA said these are GRAS molecules. These are generally recognized as safe.
And you did all this early on by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, how about the technical issue called money? Accounting
Oh yeah, so I ended up paying a bunch of fines later. It'd be good to have someone help you with that stuff, but you just can't keep track of all of it. I'm very bad with that kind of thing. So you need to get someone to help you, and when you meet the right investors, they'll introduce you to the right CPAs and bookkeepers, etc. But yeah, I mean, I ended up winging it. You know, you write personal checks to people, and then later you get the balance sheet figured out. Not the best way to do it, but again, however you have to get it done. If you're really organized and you're good at that part, then you should do that part and get someone else to handle the science part. I was good at the science part, not so good at the bookkeeping, accounting, that kind of thing. But then once you have $1 million, you can justify paying the bookkeeper $1,000 to keep up with that stuff. But it's that weird in-between time when, yeah, you probably should technically be doing it, but it's just, you know, there's only so many things that can be done. Yeah?
You mentioned doing hundreds and hundreds of pitches. So I'm curious, what did you learn in the pitching process?
That's a really awesome question. And I think that the key to doing hundreds and hundreds of pitches was understanding what questions you were going to get asked before they were even asked, and just steering the conversation towards them. Because if you're talking to someone about your product and then they want to go off on the, well, FDA approval and maybe it's a medical device thing, you want to hedge that off because you've done enough. You're not dedicating your life to something because you think you're going to hit a roadblock and you're trying to fool people. You just don't want them to get distracted with that and let them get focused on that. So I think it's just repetition to the point where you've had the conversation so many times that you recognize what those concerns are going to be, and you make them comfortable with those things early on so you're able to have a productive discussion. And at the end of the day, yeah, just having, so we, you know, as a company now, have a list of 30, so we, you know, do a brainstorming session where my employees say, oh, you know, well, hey, if someone asks me this, what can I tell them? And you want to be able to explain something to someone without having to say, oh, it's proprietary, I can't tell you, because that is really unfulfilling and makes you think, screw these guys. So you have to be able to explain things that give people the answer that they want without disclosing anything proprietary or secret. So I think it's just a matter of through the practice of having those conversations and messing up a bunch of them and saying the wrong thing, just refining where that knowing where that conversation is going to go. If that answers.
You started with an idea for social change, really, and then all the good stuff happens. You get a grant from the Gates Foundation, you get your investors, probably need to generate some liquidity, so that you have commercial application. Are you going back to the social change idea?
Yeah, so we haven't announced it yet, but we're going to get, that initial grant from the Gates Foundation was $100,000. And if you're a scientist, you probably didn't get into science to make money. I know I didn't get into science to make money. I went into science to do something that I thought was going to be valuable. And so that's the important thing about this business to all of us. And so one of the most important things I ever heard was when I visited the Gates Foundation after we got the static or something. After we got to the, sorry. I just take this off or mute this and talk loud. Is it this thing maybe? Anyways, sorry. I'll just try to talk louder. You guys ever done that headphone thing where it plays the words back to you at just a half a second delay and then you sound like an idiot? I feel like that right now. I got totally sidetracked. Oh, Gates Foundation, yes. So we got the $100,000 grant, and when we got to the Gates Foundation, they invited all the grantees up there to meet them and to meet the other grantees that they had given money to, and they basically have this proposal review process where they have a panel of people who look at all these proposals and go, this is weird, we've never seen anything like this before, it's risky, but let's give it a shot. And so they invite all these people up there, and when they invited us up there, the director of that program, it's called the Grand Challenges Explorations Program, got up there and said, hey guys, you're all scientists here basically. This is $100,000. You and I both know that's not going to get you very far. Take this money and leverage it up as high as you possibly can to make as much progress as you possibly can. And so I took that to heart and said, all right, you know, really I'd love to be able to build this business on $100,000 and, you know, maintain full ownership of this so we can steer the direction that we want to go. But at the end of the day, capital needs labor like labor needs capital, right? So we took the $100,000 and multiplied that by 12 and raised another $1.25 million in order to make that progress. And so at the end of 2 years after that grant, we were able to apply for phase 2 funding from the Gates Foundation for up to $1 million. We haven't announced any of this stuff yet, but super awesome. We're going to get some other co-investments from some government agencies. So I'm very happy that we ended up taking the private capital and making the case not only for our business as a social enterprise, but making it for a business as a whole, because at the end of the day, if the change that you're making isn't going to be a sustainable one or an economically valuable one for people, it's not going to stay around. You're just going to be giving people fish until you run out of money, right? We want to create something that is sustainable because everyone benefits, not because everyone's a good person, because most people aren't, right? You want to give them something that they are just incentivized to do the right thing, right? It's all about the aligning incentives. So it was we took the $100,000, leveraged it to raise the $1.25 million, and then put all of that towards our R&D effort. And really, flowers for us was like, hey, this is cool. We can talk to investors about flowers, right? Because now all their concerns are mitigated because they go, oh, well, flowers is no problem there. So we had one person working on floral, like we'd all brainstorm, and the rest of our team of 9 people was all working on the food stuff for the Gates Foundation. So it's an interesting balancing act about how you do this. But anyway, so that's where we're going.
Someone under 30 asked a question. Now we got a couple back here.
Yeah.
You said, or you mentioned going to like developing countries and like working with like the keto.
Yep. Facade.
So is there like a whole different set of like rules and regulations you would have to like follow?
Oh, aren't those fun? Yeah. So you think it's hard to develop something and get it implemented in the U.S. Try getting something developed and implemented in a couple of countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is where the connections and the networking come in tremendously useful. So by working with the Gates Foundation, we got connected to the folks at Purdue who have this program, the PICS program for improved cowpea storage, who started this process 25 years ago to implement these hermetically sealed bags to store cowpeas. So rather than us having to reinvent the wheel and make all those connections, we say, hey, Purdue folks, you guys are way better at this than we are. Will you tell us who to talk to and where the value proposition is and where to manufacture this stuff? Do you mind being advisors for us? Actually, with some of this money that we're going to get from the foundation, we can pay you for part of that. So rather than try to reinvent the wheel on that stuff, we look to other organizations who have the experience on the ground to do that stuff, and then we try to handle the nerd behind the scenes science stuff. Yeah, the way back.
How do you go about choosing people to work with, like within your company, who to partner with? How do you do that?
Oh, okay. So do you mean like people that I work with within the company or partners externally?
No, partners within the company. Like who do you choose to build your business with?
Oh, yeah, the guys I work with. These are all pretty much my best friends. So Jenny, I went to school with all of them, basically, is the short answer. So Jenny I went to school with, we shared a research advisor. She was a postdoc, I was a graduate student. She was just an insanely personable person that everybody liked and got along with and also did great research. And I thought that was an awesome combination of characteristics. And her homepage is tree hugger. I mean, she could not be possibly more aligned with the company's mission. It was a perfect fit and just like happy-go-lucky, gonna make it happen. Doesn't matter what goes wrong. Like this is happening. The next two were both guys that I had shared a PhD advisor with, who I knew intimately in terms of their character. And their technological capability, because you can interview someone and learn whether you can get along with them. You can't learn anything about what their technical proficiency is. You really have to get recommendations and have people vouch for other people's prowess when it comes to that. I think everyone that we've hired now, so we now are 10 full-time scientists. 8 of them are PhDs that I knew when I was in grad school. One of them, and this is a good lesson if you guys want to get into business early on, One of them just kept showing up at our office, literally standing behind me, and I turn around and say, hello, you know, what's going on? Oh, I'm Carlos, I really love what you guys are doing, I heard about you, I want to work here. And like, okay, like, nice to meet you. Why don't you send me a resume? Like, the hell out of here, this is creepy, right? I've got to start locking the door. And then, you know, a week later, hey, I haven't heard back from you guys, just, you know, want to say I'm still really interested, still love what you guys are doing. Like, yeah, cool, like, you know, try to be nice, but dude, stop this, you know? Like, how do you say politely, get the hell out of here? Happened 4 times. At the end, I'm like, dude, we seriously need to get key fobs because this is like an interruption to our business flow. And we're having a meeting one day, and someone brought up, oh man, you know, I figured this piece out, and now I just have to keep redoing it, and I really need to get this other thing done. It'd be really awesome if we had someone to help with that. And I was like, well, what about Carlos? So we called him in, we interviewed him. He made Jenny cry during the interview, and I'm like, Jenny, keep it together. You know, you gotta, you know, don't show your cards too much. And we ended up hiring him. He's been awesome. He's been really awesome. So for the most part, they're all people that we've known, or you know, the 1 or 2 that have really made an impression on us by sitting down, and speaking with them, and then checking their references. Yeah.
So you're, as a creator, you created this vision, and you have your 8 players. When do you start even thinking about percentages? Like, do you need someone else to kind of make those percentage ideas for you? Like, how did that go down?
What do you mean, like, in terms of splitting equity within the company?
Yes.
So that's part of recruiting people, right? So you have to go out there as an entrepreneur and say, hey guys, I really want you to work here. I think that this is the percentage of the company that would make this a lucrative business deal for you. And you have to make those decisions.
So you as the creator made that decision?
Well, so what happens, and this is a really weird thing that you wouldn't even go read, if you're gonna start a business, go read the Venture Hacks Bible tomorrow. Venture Hacks Bible by Nevi and something else? Naval, yeah. Go read that. I mean, just go read the first third of it. You'll learn everything you need to know about the numbers and the percentages of starting a business. But when you start the company, you just go poof out of thin air. I own 100,000 shares of this company, which are the total number of shares out there. Just poof out of thin air. That's how it works. And then you grant more shares to other people. So as part of that negotiation, you go to your buddy who says, hey, I got this job offer at Intel, and I'm going to go make $110,000 a year there. And you say, well, you can go work at Intel and hate your life, or you can work with us and enjoy your life, make a lower salary, but we're going to compensate you in equity. And that's a negotiation process. And that is by far the most uncomfortable thing for a scientist to do relative to maybe someone who's hasn't had a lot of business experience. But that's just a complete negotiation process, totally up in the air. Yeah.
So you went into business with your best friends from college, right?
Yes.
Has it put a strain on your relationships with them?
In a way, in some ways, yes, because at the end of the day, what happens sometimes is that there's a lot of different moving pieces, and when you're trying to keep track of them all, people start feeling left out. Like, well, I would like to learn about that too, but at the end of the day, that you have to carve out responsibility for different people. So in some ways, that kind of stuff is it just takes more of your time, because now when you're hanging out as friends, you end up talking about business when you'd rather be shutting down your brain. So you've got to keep people involved in that way. But I think it's actually way better. I mean, the advice that I read, the common wisdom is never do business with your friends. I'd say never do business with your dumb friends. Do business with your smart friends, because not only are they going to kick ass because they're on your team and they want you to be successful because they're your friends, but they're going to be honest with you. They're like, dude, that's a really fucking stupid decision. They're just going to say it. They're just going to tell you. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to dance around it. And you need that. If you're going to lead a business, you don't need yes people. You need people who are going to tell you when they think you're screwing up. Because if you're making decisions and you can't justify those decisions, you're probably not making good decisions. So having people who are going to call you out on that is really important. So I think it's a delicate balance, and I don't know that it's probably for everyone. But I will say that if your friends are very highly intelligent people that you respect, you're damn right you want them on the team.
So if there are no more questions, let's thank James again. Thank you.